Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another great episode of Bahrain Now, your source of local initiatives, happenings, talents, and trends. I'm your host, Khalid Hijris, here to walk you through our exciting lineup of segments and personalities from around the Kingdom of Bahrain. So don't go away, we'll be right back. Medicine is a fascinating field. With constant evolution and many different disciplines, it's a broad topic with much to discuss. Not only is it interesting in its own right, but also very rewarding. Today's guest is an example of tenacity in such a long-standing field. So please join me in welcoming consultant family and sports medicine specialist, Dr. Robert Martin. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
So, I'd like to ask you how this all started. How did you get interested in medicine?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would have to say my family. So my father's in medicine, and so growing up I saw how he was able to lend a healing hand to those that he was involved in. Now, my dad's a veterinarian, so starting off I anticipated that I was actually going to be dealing with animals and in that respect. But as I got older, I made the transition from veterinary work to human medicine, or the medical field that I'm in now. And so I really enjoyed seeing how medicine is a evolving, constantly changing field. And then I saw how Dad was able to see a problem, see a concern, investigate it, and then do a treatment to help alleviate pain, alleviate suffering. And so that, as far as like getting me into the field, I would say that was the beginning of it and what started me towards that path.
That's quite the interesting origin story, actually. And like you said, it is an ever-evolving field, and there's so much to cover in medicine. And now you're a specialist in sports and family medicine. How did you decide to get into that specialization of all specializations?
Right. So I consider myself someone who loves many hobbies. So growing up and even into adult life, I like to find a hobby, investigate it, just kind of pour myself into it, and then find the next one. And so with family medicine, I was able to find a field of medicine that allowed that. So I'm not only studying cardiology, or only studying renal, or only studying neurology. I'm able to study all the different systems. And then also, I'm not only treating children or only treating adults. As a family medicine physician, I'm able to treat individuals of all ages, from what we like to say, like as an infant, all the way to when you're in your 90s, hundreds, as long as, God willing, He allows you to live. And so it was really fascinating to me to be able to not just really delve into one specific field, but to kind of have a broad scope. With sports medicine, as I was in residency, so I guess the field of medicine in the United States, we have to first do your 4 years of undergraduate education, and then after you get your bachelor's degree, you get into your medical school, so you do 4 years of your medical doctorate, then you do residency. So in the residency program I went to, I was heavily involved with sports medicine, and my mentor at that time, he saw how I enjoyed musculoskeletal care, medical orthopedics, but then also my background in that I really love sports. And that's one thing I've noticed here, is that the people of Bahrain love sports. And so I felt very at home in seeing how much the sporting culture is here and how people want to compete and be competitive, and I really loved that. And so when he saw that I loved sports and that I was kind of had a natural tendency towards the orthopedic field, and he introduced me to sports medicine. And from there, I would say the rest was history. I was able to be involved in the program. After I finished my residency, I did another year of sports medicine training so I could get my specialty to provide that medical orthopedic care. But then also really to be involved in athletes' lives, whether it's a professional athlete or the weekend warrior or we're trying to get someone back just into the game of life,
And it is really incredible to see how you've taken an interest in something that many of us might even take for granted. I mean, we don't really think of, for us not in the field of medicine, we don't always think about all of the muscle and sinew that makes everything that we do possible. And I'm sure that when you're in such a complex field, it probably comes with its own challenges. Could you tell us a little bit about some challenges you might have faced and how you overcame them?
Yeah, so I would say one of the most recent challenges that many, like all of us, have faced was the COVID-19 pandemic. That was a very challenging time in medicine. And for all intents and purposes, we were living out the scientific process. We had this virus that was sweeping across the world. We didn't know a lot about it. And as we were learning about the virus and as we were learning about the treatment, we were then enacting the treatment, enacting the quarantine, enacting these ways to keep people safe. And so where I was at the time in Atlanta, Georgia, we, as a family medicine physician, we have the responsibility of providing preventative care to healthy individuals, and then also individuals that have chronic illnesses like hypertension, diabetes, asthma, things like that where it's stable and you're not acutely sick. And so I had this kind of challenge where you have acutely sick individuals coming to the office, because we need to take care of those that had COVID-19 or possibly had COVID, but yet I have these patients that are healthy, that they aren't acutely sick. How do you keep them from how do you keep them away from the virus, quarantined, yet provide that care? And so that was a challenge in living it out. And so I had the great opportunity and privilege to start a telemedicine practice while I was in Atlanta so that we could care for the individuals who are not acutely sick, that still needed medical care, but yet at the same time keeping them well, and then caring for those that were acutely sick. And it was a time of learning patience, perseverance, adaptability, and it was a great growing opportunity throughout that adversity.
Definitely, just by the way that you're talking about it. And it's always really interesting because, COVID, hit everybody quite hard. But I think that for anyone involved in medicine, they were more or less on the front lines. They were on the front lines, and regardless of the field, because the body is essentially one big patchwork of many different components basically working together. So, I know a lot of people even suffered from, for example, like muscle pain when they got COVID. And speaking about perspective, actually, I'm quite interested because I've never really had experience with a doctor of your specialization. So what would a typical consultation look like with you?
Right, so especially sports medicine, of course, like you make your appointment and then you come to see me, and similar to most other appointments, like the nursing staff will check you in, get the vital signs, but then when you come to me, because of my background in family medicine, I try to do more of a holistic care. And so I have the sports medicine background, the medical orthopedic kind of specialty into that musculoskeletal care. But then also with the family medicine, I like to provide care from the whole picture, not just like specifically. So it starts with the interview process, not much different than what we're doing right now, because I want to know who you are, what are your concerns, what's bothering you the most, and then once we're able to go into those details and see what's affecting you at that time, if anything at all, we can then decide together, because part of that holistic care is collaboration. So it's not just me sitting there lecturing to you or telling you, you need to do this, you need to do that, but from a patient-doctor relationship saying, okay, these are the investigations I recommend, and then this is also maybe the treatment plan that I recommend, and then we kind of collaborate together so that you get a individualized care plan to help you be the healthiest that you can. And then with the preventative part, because of that sports medicine, I like to introduce just the importance of that exercise is medicine, that nutrition can be medicine, because lots of times we forget about that. We think, okay, if I can just take this pill or I just do that, suddenly it's fixed. But the importance of the exercise, importance of the nutrition. And so, yeah, really a typical appointment is us getting to know each other, talking, the examination, and then working with each other to provide that individualized care plan.
So basically really putting into practice, as you said, the holistic approach to medicine, which I mean, I really admire, because going back to what I said and what you've also said much more eloquently, is that everything kind of fits together. And I really admire that approach of, you know, having an interview process to actually really get to the root of it. And like you said, it's never just like treating the symptoms like with a pill. It's a whole network, basically. I'm a little curious about your experience with, I think, I don't know what the term you used for it was, but you said it was something to do with telecommunications, I believe?
Yes.
So could you explain what your responsibilities were like during that time?
Yeah, so with telemedicine, you're providing a medical service, but we're doing it through whether it's Microsoft Teams or Zoom or whatever pathway you want to enact. We used Zoom at the time, and so you're seeing the patient, interviewing the patient, and then prescribing care through a audio-visual kind of connection. So during that time, because we wanted to keep people safe, we were able to develop a process where basically like a support staff calls the patient, make sure that they're ready, make sure they have Zoom downloaded, make sure that you know how to use it. Because I mean, I don't know about you, but my parents and even like grandparents, they might need a little bit of help. And it's not bad, it's just I grew up with this and it was much easier for me. But they were able to help them, make sure you were able to do that. And then once that happened, there was an interview process no different than when now I call my parents back in the States. We were able to talk almost like we're talking right now. Now the physical presence is gone and there's a little bit of lack there, but able to still do the interview process, see what's going on, what are your concerns, and even through the television able to do an exam and to know kind of exactly what's going on and then prescribe that treatment plan that needed to be happening. It wasn't for every patient, but it was for a majority of patients, and so we were really able to provide that kind of good quality care, and I would say even innovative as we're using the technology that we have now to provide that.
It's really encouraging for me to see how important communication is to your practice. And obviously you probably deal with a wide myriad of people with different beliefs, different approaches. Sometimes, I mean, I'm sure you have a friend like this, and God forbid a patient, who usually thinks they know better than the doctor, and they usually come with a lot of preconceived notions of what's actually wrong with them. Mm-hmm. What are some common misconceptions that some of your patients have had in the past?
Right, yeah, I would say one of the biggest or number one misconception is that, especially when dealing with chronic illness, which is typically because of genetics and a long history of prior things that's happened before, is that, okay, I'm going to come see the doctor, he's going to tell me, for instance, let's say we diagnose hypertension or we diagnose diabetes. The conception is, okay, he'll give me a pill, I'll take it for 2 weeks, maybe a month, and then I'm going to be fixed, healed, no more, I'm fine, khalas. But in actuality, part of that process is we're just starting. We're starting our relationship, we're starting the treatment of a chronic illness. That's why it's called chronic. And unfortunately, it's going to be there for a long time. Now, through proper diet, through proper exercise, maybe we can decrease the dose of the medicine. But many times, the medicine is augmenting and helping what we're already doing with a healthy lifestyle to treat the underlying physiologic changes that have happened. And it's not just going to suddenly rapidly heal it, barring a miracle. But we have to continue that process. we're working towards getting you on the least amount of medicine as possible. Because I don't know about you, but the last thing I want to do is go to a physician and then he orders tons of tests and then he says, okay, you have to take these 5 pills. I don't want to do that. I don't think anyone wants to. But we want to work together to help you be the healthiest you can and be on the least amount of medicine as you can so that things are treated well.
Well, I mean, you mentioned lifestyle, and I think that leads into my next question perfectly. I mean, knowing all that you know, I've often heard the expression, once you learn something, you can't unlearn something, and I imagine you go through a lot of that being a doctor. How has your career influenced your personal life? How have you changed since entering the field of medicine?
Right. A lot of it with sports medicine, as I'm learning about lifestyle, like nutrition, exercise. I do like to compete. I've competed in a few triathlons, but using those principles to put it in my personal life. As I'm studying and learning, I'm like, oh wow, that sounds really interesting. I'm going to do that. And then from the family medicine side, I would say as a doctor, you are taught to be curious. So you're taught to not just take things at face value. Yes, you hear the concern, but then you want to dive a little bit deeper and investigate and find out, okay, but why is this happening? Okay, you have high blood pressure, but why? Why do you have high blood pressure? You're tired, but why are you tired? And so you're taught to really research and try to find out the root cause. And so whether it's good or bad, I've brought that even into my personal life, whether it's finding a school for my children or it's finding the best place to go eat or other things. I find myself constantly asking questions, constantly trying to learn, constantly just researching things.
And actually, speaking of, I mean, as you said, I mean, medicine is so complex, and since you're taught to be curious, and I imagine that kind of comes with the territory because, I mean, medicine is a very scientific field. Mm-hmm. It isn't something that's open to interpretation, and yet it is continuously built upon. How do you keep up with all of the updates on medicine, basically?
Yeah, it's a lifelong task. Like you said, it's constantly changing, constantly evolving. We are learning, like we get new medications, we get new methods, we get better ways to treat something. And so part of that is we have continuous medical education or continuous learning. And especially because I'm maintaining my licenses in the States, so I'm maintaining that. I have a board certification in family medicine and sports medicine from the American Board of Family Medicine. And so to keep those up, I have to get a certain number of hours of continuing education. And a great thing about the Kingdom of Bahrain is that the National Health Regulatory Authority here also requires a certain number of continuing medical education to maintain your license. And I think it's wonderful because it keeps people like me up to date so that we're not providing outdated care, and we're also providing the highest quality and the most innovative part. And so it looks like I have journals that I read, I have conferences that I go to, or even as you're treating things, you're just constantly reading about it, reminding yourself. So you have to maintain that just curiosity to want to continue learning so that you don't stay stagnant. I mean, we know that in life, God made us and He created us, and we're constantly growing and we're constantly learning and becoming almost like new people with each year. And so you want to do that even with a field like medicine or any type of profession that you have.
That's very well said, and like you said, we are always changing. And I mean, I looked you up before the interview, and I've actually seen your credentials and everything. You have quite the impressive list. So I guess my question is, what's next for you?
Right, so right now, it's enjoying this privilege that I've had being in the Kingdom of Bahrain. And as I'm working, trying to build up my practice, so I have a desire to especially build up the sports medicine practice. There's many different football clubs, and I've noticed like marathons and the Ironman triathlon and the many different sports here, and building that sports medicine practice up to provide that high quality, innovative care here in the country, because I see myself in the future of being a part of the community of Bahrain and being a part of the people's lives and kind of building that up. I want to become a better and better physician every day. And then also part of the future, just on a personal note, is becoming and being a part of my family's life. So it bleeds over, and you want to be a better father, you want to be a better husband, and you want to help with your raising of your children as well. And so every day is the future-wise is just building that up, becoming a better person, and honoring God through doing those things.
Very beautifully said. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I'm thankful for the opportunity to be here. I'm very thankful to the Kingdom of Bahrain because I'm a guest here. I'm thankful that they've allowed me to be here, to practice medicine here. It's been a great privilege. And one thing that's been wonderful, because we moved here in September, so we've not been here that long, but just the people of Bahrain and how lovely they have been. Very welcoming, very, very kind, and just anytime I've had a question, everyone's been willing to answer it. I've never felt like a stranger, which has been wonderful.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Doctor, and we're very happy to have you here in Bahrain.
Thank you very much.
So viewers, stay tuned. We have more amazing stories coming up on Bahrain Now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've made it to the finish line. A huge thank you to all of our guests for joining us tonight, and another huge thank you to all of you watching us at home. As always, be sure to reach out to us on our social media accounts. We love to hear from you. This was Khalid Hidris, and until next time, good night and God bless.